Hey, thanks for tuning into my podcast. This is Big Head on the Block, hosted by me, Tim Henderson, aka Big Head. It's me, Big Head, and we on the block. We were lions. That's the name of this podcast. And the reason I named it that is because I want everybody in the police world to know, and I want the community to know that the people that are out here on the front line protecting and serving are lions, right? There's different kind of cops. It takes a lot to be a very good and effective cop, but it also takes the mindset of a lion. You have to understand that you have to be king of the mountain. You have to be the apex. You have to be the one that's in control of your fate, your destiny, because it's inherently a very dangerous job being a police officer. Listen to the quote from the movie Troy.
Let no man forget how menacing we are. We are lions.
The quote you just heard was from Achilles when he addressed his myrmidons just before battle. Being a police officer is an inherently dangerous job, especially if you're the kind of cop that's proactive and put yourself in dangerous situations above and beyond the regular calls for service, right? We were lions as a mindset. You have to be king of the jungle. You have to be in shape. You have to be able to hunt. You have to be able to defend yourself. You have to be everything, including compassionate, including extremely aggressive when necessary. That's what the reference is. And it's not meant to be negative. It's not trying to say that we're a dominant personality in the community or anything like that, because being a police officer, you have to be extremely compassionate also, but you have to be able to be extremely aggressive very quickly. You have to be able to show violence and force rapidly in this career, because people will try you, people will test you, people will try to kill you, and on occasion they succeed and they do kill people. And I'll tell you this, we lost several officers during the course of my career, and every one of them hurt, because every one of them could have been me and it could have been the next officer next to me. So don't take anything for granted. Whenever I say we are lions, I mean that we have to be able to hunt and we have to be able to survive. Now, the mindset has changed over the years, and I want officers to get back to the mindset of understanding this. You have to be a dominant personality on these streets. You have to be fair, but you have to be firm. You have to have the ability to make quick, decisive decisions, and you have to be very reactive, because you might be standing there talking to somebody and they might go for your gun. You have to be able to go from 0 to 100 in a nano of a second to survive. You have to have instincts, and the predatorial instincts, like the lions, they understand the dynamics. They understand how to hunt. When you're out here on these streets, you have to understand how to hunt. You have to understand how to survive, how to thrive, period. These guys that are out here doing harm to the community, now more than ever, they don't mind doing harm to you. So you have to be fierce. And I don't want anybody to misinterpret the passion that I'm displaying and the reasoning I'm using behind the mindset. Too many cops become victims. Too many cops are indecisive. Young cops, you have got to understand the law. You have got to understand your policy and procedure, and you have got to be able to take the necessary action as quick as possible when something goes wrong. If somebody punches you, by all means, you have to punch back. You don't have to be a victim, and I talked about that on several podcasts before. Not being a victim doesn't mean that you have to be overly aggressive, right? I tell people all the time, I'm nonviolent by nature, but easily provoked. And guess what? You want to provoke me, and my response is going to be equal to or greater than whatever your response is, especially if it's a physical response. If you think you put your dukes up and you want to fight me, I promise you, I'm going to do everything I can to neutralize you, period. Whether that means slamming you to the ground, punching you in the face, worst case scenario, it turns into a lethal force encounter and I have to take your life. I'm prepared to do that, because when I went into this profession, I was taught by grown men, and I was around grown men who understood how to give us the knowledge and experience that they had. We was able to emulate things that they did. And a lot of us had survival instincts that were just inherent in us from our upbringing and from the way that we traversed throughout our careers. I always had a survival instinct, period. Growing up, that's how I was. It was in my nature. I was extremely patriotic. You know, I was like every other boy from my era. You got in fights from time to time. You knew who the tough guys in the neighborhood were, and you knew who the get-by guys were. And in the police world, it's the same. You have different levels of police officers, right? You have police officers that go out there that are somewhat timid, but do their job. They respond to calls. They don't seek out the bad guys. They don't do proactive work. I call them the get-by guys. And look, you need some get-by guys to answer calls, but the people that lay it on the line all day, every day, that's the people that try to influence the crime in their areas that they're working, right? If you're patrolling the area, it's incumbent upon you, if you're a real cop, a street cop, if you're an out front guy, you got to make sure these bad guys not only know you, but respect you. And if that means that you have to use a certain amount of intimidation to get that, then so be it. Back in my day, and my day hadn't been that long ago, I've been retired from Baton Rouge for 4 years. But back in my day, the early days, and I don't want to hear all this BS about cameras and all this. We had body cameras and we had in-car cameras. But you handle the streets like this. You treat everybody good until they make you treat them different. And when they make you treat them different, then you treat them proportionate, right? Whatever the case may be. Look, I've been in quite a few fights over the course of my career. Most of them hadn't been just knockdown, drag-out fights, but there were a couple of them. And there was a reason why I didn't get into that many fights, because the streets knew I was fair. I kept myself physically fit. At one point in time, I was able to bench press 400 pounds, and I was able to military press 315 pounds. I always stayed strong. Anybody who knows me knows that I stayed strong. And the objective when I went to the health club, or the gym, as y'all call it, I wanted to be the strongest person in the room. Jerry Bloom always said it was a burden being the smartest person in the room, and I knew I didn't have that burden. So my burden was, I wanted to have the burden of being the strongest man in the room. That's the burden I wanted. Anytime I went out on a call, I wanted them to think they had a grown man in front of them that was very capable of causing them physical harm. From a standpoint of intimidation, your presence, right? The number one thing that you have going for you is your physical presence when you get out on a call. They're going to analyze you and they're going to say, hey, maybe this guy's a little bit bigger than I won't, and maybe I won't try him, right? As opposed, and look, everybody can't control how big, tall they are or anything like that. I was about 6'3", 260 pounds at my peak as far as muscularity goes. That's something that I could control, the weight and everything. I couldn't control the height. But if you're shorter, you can still lift weights and you can still make yourself a formidable adversary. You got to make yourself somebody that doesn't look like they can be messed with. Because these knuckleheads on the street, even more so now than 5-10 years ago, they'll try you. They see a lot of these cop videos and they see people resisting cops and fighting cops and trying to take their gun and everything, and they become okay with it. At this point in time in the profession of police officers, it's incumbent upon you young officers, and the experienced officers need to give them some wisdom and insight. Y'all have got to take these streets back. And that means that you have to do certain things that maybe take you out of your comfort zone. Use your instincts. Go out there and patrol. Make these violator stops. Get the bad guys with the guns. Get the bad guy with the fentanyl. Get the bad guys that are disrupting the normal, everyday citizens' quality of life. Because more so now than ever, the community depends upon you. For all you officers still out there, if you mad at your administration and you're not doing your job because you think you're under bad conditions, guess what? I tell everybody, and I told myself this: the chief of police, the uniform patrol commander, none of them, not even the mayor, none of them on a day-to-day have any kind of impact on me. They may send some BS down to the supervisors, and I may get some assignment I don't want for the day, but on average, you're not going to have anything that they do that bothers you. This is how I handle myself. When I was in negative situations, I went to roll call. I heard what they had to say. I took notes on anything that they told us was important for the day. Then I got in my car, which is my own my own office. My police car is my own office. All right. I have a mobile office. I go out in the field. I immerse myself in the community. I look for traffic stops. I look for criminal violations. I look for anything that'll put me in a position to where I can be effective and help my community out. If you think that it's not your community, understand this: you at your job 4 days a week on average, That's without any overtime or extra duty. So 4 days a week, you're in the same community on the same streets. If you don't think you live there, guess what? You taking the wrong approach. You need to take a vested interest in the communities that you work in, and you need to make sure that when they see you, they say, hey, that's a crime fighter. That's a guy you don't want to mess with. Or the good people say, hey, that's a guy we can rely on. That's a guy who cares about what's going on in this community. And you need to be that guy. A lot of cops, they just go nowadays, they say, well, we got bad working conditions. We can't do this. Look, I've been under stressful conditions before. I've been under supervision that made life miserable coming to work every day. Remember what I told you? Get in your car, get out there and do your job. Answer your calls, because the dispatcher, and look, dispatchers, they're going to annoy you because they're going to want you to answer calls. And guess what? Bro, stupid, I'm throwing this in here for you. I would rather be proactive than answer calls, but these calls have to be answered, right? So you take your calls, and in between calls, you do a little bit more. Anybody can be an average cop. Anybody can. You take your calls, you go sit in a parking lot, you write your reports. You don't make any difference on crime. If you want to be elite, if you want to be somebody that's going to be remembered for the things that you do, you have to take it upon yourself to be a crime fighter. And to be a crime fighter, it goes back to we are lions, right? You have to have the mindset that, hey, this is my jungle, and I'm not going to let anybody or anything come in here and distract my mission, which is to make this a safer and better community. When I was growing up, something that resonated with me, man, and I don't know why, but they had a show, it was a cartoon called Tarzan, and during the, I guess would be called the intro, during the intro, one portion of this said, I am Tarzan of the Apes, Lord of the Jungle. This is my domain, and I protect those who come here. This is my domain. Every area that I patrolled, I considered my domain, and I tried to protect those who come here. I was a kid when that played, and I liked that saying so much as a kid that I took a tape recorder with a little cassette, and I put it in front of the TV at my grandmother's house. And whenever the show came on, back then you only got one chance, right? I knew it came on at like 10 o'clock, just making up that time. So at 9:50, I was sitting there with a tape recorder, and I taped the whole intro. And that's the one thing that always stuck with me. This is my domain, and I protect those who come here. You have to be a protector. You have to be a gladiator. You have to be compassionate. You have to be everything at any given moment, at any given time as a police officer. You need to make sure that not only are you doing your job, you're doing your job effective, and you're doing your job with specific intent and purpose, and that's to make a better and safer community, because these people out here need you, right? I don't care if you're mad at the administration. I don't care if you're mad at your sergeant. Get out there and do your job and show the people that you care. Let them, community policing, all right, let's just transition to community policing. I always like to use the term policing your community. That's the term I like. I don't like community policing. There's an agenda attached to that, just like the war on drugs. I've said that before. Anytime you attach an agenda to a program, it's set up for failure. Community policing, I'm not talking about having these night out on crimes. I'm not talking about having times where you hand out stuff. I'm talking about every day you on patrol, you being out there and you being effective. The community needs to be able to trust you. If you're having a bad day, they don't care. They don't care if you have a bad assignment, and you shouldn't put that on them, right? A lot of times cops, they get a little attitudinal whenever they have to respond and they don't feel like taking a car burglary, for instance. They'll be attitudinal. But what you got to realize is that person that called you for the car burglary, that's probably one of the worst days of their life because they feel violated. They may have lost everything that was important to them in that vehicle. It's mundane for you because it's just something that you don't really want to do. You don't really want to take fingerprints. We all been there. I'm not trying to say that I love taking fingerprints because just like everybody, I don't. But you have to make sure that the community sees that you care. And look, they pay attention. They see that you care. They know if you're a good cop, they know when you're at work. They know everything about you. They know what your likes and dislikes are. Let me tell you, when I worked in the South, and I spent a lot of my time in the South, the bottom, the top, and everywhere in between, them guys knew one thing. They knew that if they were riding around with loud music with bass, that I was going to get them, because they knew that I didn't appreciate that. And I didn't appreciate it for a multitude of reasons. And one of them was because it annoyed me. But the most critical factor was that anytime they riding through with that loud bass in the 90s and 2000s, it was really bad. It's dissipated over the years. But back then, you would ride and you could hear bass from one end of the block to the next. And that meant everybody who's in their house watching TV was going to be disrupted, right? Now, the bad guys, they would stop and they say, I turned it down, big head. I saw you, I turned it down. And I said, my response is this: I don't care that you turned it down when you saw me. I appreciate the respect factor, but you need to respect these people in these neighborhoods. If you want to listen to that kind of music, get on the interstate or get somewhere where you're not disrupting everybody's quality of life, because that's very annoying when your pictures rattle off the wall and everything. But let's get back to being a cop and being the kind of cop that people keep track of. I'm going to tell you a story. They got a guy, Rennie. He's on the block. I make the block. I see him. He's over there off of Cotton Street. And I pull up to him and I say, "What's up, man?" And, we just talking, just regular average chit chat, because I talk to everybody. Everybody in the hood, everybody in every community, I always talk to them. I stop and chat with them. I don't care if you're a gang member. I don't care if you're the little old lady. I'm going to stop and I'm going to chat with you, and or I'm going to wave at you. So when I see him, I said, "Hey, man, what's up, bro?" We just chatting. I said, "I'm out on the block kind of early today." He said, "Yeah, my mom saw you on the other side of town. She called and told me." That tells you that they know that I'm a formidable adversary. If a lady calls their kid to tell them that I'm on the block, they basically saying, watch out and don't do wrong, right? They knew my car number. Other cops, they keep up with our car numbers. If you somebody that's effective and you out here doing proactive stuff, just like Bruh Stupid, they knew where Bruh Stupid was assigned. They knew what his unit number was. Even when he was riding those bikes, he was in the bike patrol for a while. He would just volunteer, and he would be riding in the bikes in these neighborhoods. And guess what? They knew where he was at when he was out and about, because they knew that he was going to be assertive and aggressive in enforcing criminal law. That's what he did. And that's a shout out to you, Bruh Stupid, because you were an effective cop whenever it came to influencing crime in the area. You were the one. And look, I used to joke. A lot of them, whenever they irritated me, I would just tell them as a joke. I'm like, "All right, bro, y'all keep playing. I'm going to get Bruh Stupid over here." And, they was like, "Man, don't bring that dude over here," because they knew that he would take enforcement action. So back on topic, cops, when you're out here, remember, you got to be a lion. You got to be king of the jungle. Never forget the compassion. That's the one thing I'll tell you. Never forget your compassion. I saw a lot of officers that showed an extreme amount of compassion during the course of their duty. And that consists of this: if you see people in need, help them. If you see people that are being, that their lives are being disrupted by a gang member or a drug dealer in the area, take it upon yourself to figure out a strategy to stop this. And Uniform Patrol, you're the backbone of every police department. The police department can survive without everybody. I've already told y'all that. So if you're a Uniform Patrol officer and you're out there, I don't want to hear nothing about you can't do this, you can't do that. You can do everything that the law allows you to do. And guess what? If somebody tries to be combative towards you, whether or not it looks good or not, you should know how to defend yourself, whether it be straight up fist fight, whether it be using your baton, whether it be using your taser, your pepper spray, whatever the case may be. You don't have to be a victim. Always remember that. For all y'all who are scared to do anything because you're worried about the media scrutiny, I get it, man. I get it. I understand it. But educate yourself. Have muscle memory. Have situations already pre-planned in your head. That way, when something does happen that's very sporadic, you will have muscle memory and you'll have a good reaction, a good tactical reaction, because tactics keep you alive. I always say instincts. That's what keeps cops alive. Cops with good instincts, they can survive some of the most critical elements of what occurs during a struggle or a fight or a shooting. Now, that doesn't mean that any harm's not going to come to you, because sometimes it does. But if they bring harm to you, bring harm back to them. Like I said, meet them, and exceed their level of aggression. If they want to fight, tase them. If you in the middle of a fight and you can't get to any of your instruments, hit hard. If you're not winning, fight harder. That's all I can say. You have got to understand that you have got to be the lion. You have got to be king of the jungle. You have got to have the mindset, not that you're invincible, but that you're capable. Not invincible, but capable. You have to be capable. You have to be out there and hunt the bad guys, right? You have got to hunt the bad guys. And I'm going to read you something from Ernest Hemingway. When I used to chase fugitives, and that's something that I was very passionate about, I went after the shooters. I went after the people that tried to either they did succeed at killing somebody or they shot somebody. Those are the ones that I focused on. People that pulled armed robberies, people that were very violent or had violent tendencies. And after dealing with this for many years, I saw a quote by Ernest Hemingway, and it made a lot of sense. It told me about my mindset, and I'm going to read it to you. There is no hunting like the hunting of man, and those who have hunted armed men long enough and liked it never care for anything else thereafter. Now, that's a pretty profound statement, right? And I use that as an example. Armed men. Whenever you're hunting fugitives, you're hunting the worst of the worst. You're hunting people that have shown a propensity for violence. You have shown that they have no concern for anybody else's safety, which means that you may be putting yourself in a situation where you have to engage them either physically or, with a weapon. You may have to shoot it out with them if you try to engage them. And I'll tell you this: you do the very best you can. Sometimes you don't come out on top. Like I said, we lost many officers while I was in the course of my career, and every one of them hurt. Every one of them were capable officers. Every now and then, things just happen and the bad guy gets the advantage. Nothing you can do about that. We had some officers killed in Dallas just before our officers got killed in 2016. And I specifically remember a guy, he went to engage the bad guy, and they were each behind a pole. The cop went one way. The guy looked like he was going the same way, but then he doubled back and surrounded him and shot him and was able to kill him. And that officer in Dallas, people said, man, that's not a good way to die. And I said, what better way is there to die? This guy engaged an armed adversary. At the moment that he got killed, he was attempting to kill the guy who had probably already killed several other people. I don't remember the dynamics of how everything occurred because it's been several years ago. But I know this. I remember specifically him trying to engage that guy. He would have killed that guy if he had not gotten killed. And for all those officers who have died in the line of duty and to their families, I commend you for your actions and for the courage that it took to engage these people and the courage that it took to have a life and death encounter. And those who have officers that have died in the line of duty, I send my condolences to you. But know this, they were probably doing the job that they wanted to do at the time it happened. So a warrior sometimes meets a warrior's death. And nobody wants their cop to die, but it happens. Cops out there, I know I've been kind of ranting and raving, but I want you to understand this. I fully support y'all. I watch a lot of these videos on TV and YouTube, the ones that come across Facebook or whatever, and I see a lot of indecisiveness. So the ending message to you is this: be decisive, be aggressive when necessary, prepare for combat. If you're prepared for combat and it don't come, so much the better. But if you're not prepared and it comes, you are going to be a statistic. Do not be a statistic. Be, like I said at the beginning, be a lion. Let no man forget how menacing we are. We are lions. That should be your mindset. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Big Head on the Block. I'm Tim Henderson, the host. I look forward to dropping another podcast soon. Please give us any comments, likes, dislikes, or any topics y'all would like to discuss. Thank you.